Rachel Zegler is getting a lot of hate.
Do I think she made some mistakes along the way? I do. She made quite a few mistakes along the way.
And when she landed a big role like this and realized that this is not the character that she really wants to portray.
And I feel like, especially with people like this that have like these types of viewpoints, I don't see her coming back from this at all. I think she is totally cooked with this.
She should have given that role to someone who really understands that character and loves that character.
She walked out smiling, but within seconds, that smile shattered. The moment Rachel Zegler stepped on stage, the energy shifted, and not in the way anyone expected. This wasn't a red carpet or a scripted press event. This was raw, real, and brutally public.
Honestly, girl boss narratives suck. They are either overpowered, poorly written, forced down the audience's throat, and it just looks like I'm staring at TikTok modern women posts that always talk about men are trash, men are this, men are that. They finally got the opportunity to do that, especially with this buffoon right here. I still don't know why she's still alive. And before you start saying I'm sexist, here are some well-written female characters. This woman right here is way better. So is she. And her too. Man, I love this girl, honestly. She couldn't fit in the background, but Debbie is definitely number one.
As she stood before a crowd expecting applause, what hit her instead was a cold, rising wave of boos, audible, unfiltered, and growing louder by the second. Witnesses say her face dropped instantly, eyes wide, hands trembling. And then she cracked. Right there, in front of flashing cameras and stunned fans, Rachel Zegler broke down. But this wasn't just about one bad night. This was the breaking point of a storm that had been building for months, some would say years.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have when I say that this has been the biggest adjustment of my life, like understanding the way my life operates now, being who I am, and the things that I've been so fortunate to make. It comes with so much ground that I never thought I would be able to cover, and that people think I'm doing poorly and other people think I'm doing gracefully, and I don't think I'm doing it at all.
The fall from Hollywood's golden girl to the most booed woman in Disney's modern history didn't happen overnight. It was a slow collapse, hidden beneath red carpets and fake smiles. And it all led here to a moment so uncomfortable, so raw, that even her harshest critics were caught off guard. But how did it come to this? What really pushed fans to turn on her so publicly? And what happened next, after the tears, left everyone stunned.
Rachel Zegler is back in the news because her PR team is working overtime right now to fix her image, because so many of these resurfaced video clips of her just make her look really, really bad. What matters here is perception. Who she actually is actually has little consequence on any of this. How she's perceived by the world. That's what matters. Right. And how she's perceived by the world is not good, because she hasn't been able to escape these interview clips, which show a clear disdain for the company she works for, a clear disdain for the story in which she's been hired to help portray and tell. Who she is really has little bearing on any of this. At the end of the day, Disney doesn't care who she really is. I'm sure the people that love her, her friends and family, she's plenty nice to them. That's not what matters.
Not long ago, Rachel Zegler was the face of Hollywood's future, handpicked by Steven Spielberg to lead West Side Story and backed by Disney to become their next live-action princess. She was hailed as a breakout star, talented, charismatic, and seemingly unshakable. Her debut performance earned her a Golden Globe, and overnight, she went from unknown to unstoppable. Studio executives praised her range, and the industry quickly positioned her as the next big thing.
Yeah, well, we're busy, of course. Vita opens at the Palladium this summer, so we're collaborating with Jamie Lloyd again following Sunset Boulevard. Well, Rachel was desperate to play with Baron. You know, it was her idea, and we saw an audition tape, and she was absolutely sensational. You know, she worked with our musical supervisor in New York on the material. Her versions of the songs were terrific. Jamie's excited, Andrew and Tim are excited. So, I mean, it should make for a fabulous summer at the Palladium. Ticket sales are already, through the roof. So we're really thrilled about that.
Critics called her the next big thing, and for a moment, it seemed like nothing could go wrong. But behind the applause, something was already cracking. Industry insiders whispered about behind-the-scenes tension. She was young, yes, but also untested. And as her fame skyrocketed, so did her voice online. Rachel Zegler wasn't just acting, she was talking a lot.
A lot of what you see with Zegler is really just a pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work. She believes that she should be able to express herself and speak her truth or whatever nonsense, regardless of the consequences to everybody else. In reality, you have a job. You're getting paid to do this job. You signed on the dotted line. You took on the role. And that job comes with certain basic responsibilities. And one of the most basic is the responsibility to control yourself and comport yourself a certain way publicly so that you don't harm the project, thereby harm all the hundreds of other people who are working on it.
From calling classic Disney stories weird to brushing off decades of storytelling with snarky one-liners, she quickly built a reputation, not for humility, but for mockery. Instead of endearing herself to fans, she alienated them. Her interviews, meant to build excitement, became lightning rods for backlash. Memes exploded.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still lined up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Comment sections turned hostile, and the very audience she was supposed to lead into a new Disney era began turning away. What once looked like a meteoric rise started to feel more like a countdown, and no one knew when it would hit zero until now.
Girl power, girl boss. Everyone needs to be a strong, independent woman that don't need no man. And everybody is tired of that. Everybody is sick of that. And everybody is ganging up on Rachel. She dealt with some really, really severe backlash, which I can kind of understand, but me personally, I'm not under the impression that she wasn't maybe coached to make this happen, to create some type of a draw for the movie, because this is the narrative that Disney particularly is trying to play.
It all came crashing down with Snow White. What was supposed to be Rachel Zegler's crowning achievement turned into a full-blown public relations nightmare. Instead of embracing the magic of the classic tale, Zegler seemed almost annoyed by it.
Disney, get your girl. Rachel Zegler is making it very difficult to be excited for the new Snow White movie that's supposed to come out next year. If you are living under a rock, there's been a lot of controversy about the fact that Rachel Zegler is playing Snow White in the film. That's not where my problem comes. I'm all for it. Go for it. But what she's doing in press, and these are interviews that I believe were done before the actors' strike, but of course are now being brought up on the internet. She's basically talking about how much she didn't like the actual original movie, even saying that it scared her, and then talking about how the love story in this isn't really going to be at the forefront, that the prince, yes, has been cast, he's in it, but might be cut, Hollywood, and that the prince in the original film was problematic and was creepy because he was stalking Snow White. I just can't believe that Disney's PR hasn't silenced her on this yet. The live-action movies already have a problem where people are kind of over them and they don't like the changes that are being made from the originals to these. And with this one, we're definitely going to see some change.
In interview after interview, she dismissed the original film as creepy, mocked the prince as a stalker, and proudly declared that her version of Snow White would be nothing like the original. The intention may have been to sound modern, progressive, and empowered. But to millions of fans, it came off as smug, disrespectful, and wildly out of touch. Disney purists felt betrayed. Younger fans, hoping for a magical reimagining, were left confused. And conservative commentators had a field day painting Zegler as the symbol of everything wrong with woke Hollywood. Clips of her interviews went viral for all the wrong reasons. Hashtags trended, boycotts were announced. Some fans began calling for the entire film to be scrapped. And worst of all, when the backlash hit, Zegler didn't back down. She doubled down. That only fanned the flames. What began as disappointment quickly turned into open hostility. Her name stopped trending alongside words like trailblazer and started showing up next to words like ungrateful and arrogant. Public sentiment shifted. Suddenly, Zegler wasn't the girl with the golden voice. She was the villain rewriting fairy tales no one asked to change. But that was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, things were getting even messier behind the cameras. As the public backlash swelled, insiders began to speak out, and what they shared only made things worse. According to multiple alleged sources, working with Rachel Zegler wasn't exactly a fairy tale. On the set of Snow White, rumors began to swirl about her attitude toward crew members and co-stars. Whispers of diva behavior, tension during rewrites, and arguments over creative direction began to leak. Some claimed she demanded script changes to align with her personal beliefs, while others said she clashed with costume designers over her character's appearance. But the real tipping point came during rehearsals for Evita. What was supposed to be her bold leap into Broadway allegedly turned into chaos. Leaked comments from individuals close to the production painted Zegler as impossible to direct and obsessed with control. One source reportedly said, "It's like walking on eggshells around her. She has to be the smartest person in the room, or she makes you pay for it." These weren't anonymous internet trolls. These were seasoned professionals, people with decades in the industry sounding the alarm. And just like that, the narrative flipped. Zegler was no longer the misunderstood artist trying to find her voice. She was now seen as the problem. With each new allegation, her image continued to crumble. Audiences began to wonder, was this really about one bad performance? Or was it a pattern no one had wanted to admit? That suspicion exploded when she stepped on stage and faced the crowd. It was something no actor ever wants to hear. What was meant to be a redemption moment, a carefully planned appearance at a fan expo in Los Angeles, turned into a public unraveling. Rachel Zegler was scheduled to speak candidly about her journey, answer a few softball questions, and reconnect with the public. Her team had reportedly worked for weeks to prepare. Tight security, pre-approved talking points, even a controlled Q&A segment. But none of it could stop what happened the second she walked on stage. At first, there was silence. Then, a faint murmur. And then, boos. Low at first, scattered but unmistakable. Like a ripple through a still lake, it spread. More voices joined in, louder, angrier. One person shouted, "Not my Snow White!" Another yelled, "Go back to Broadway!" Cameras were already rolling. Zegler froze. Her smile faltered, then vanished completely. You could see it in her eyes. The disbelief, the panic. She tried to speak, but the words didn't land. The crowd wasn't listening. They were venting, cheering her downfall in real time. And then it happened. Her voice cracked. She looked down, hands visibly shaking, trying to hold it together. But she couldn't. The actress who had once stood tall before millions crumbled on stage. Tears welled up, mascara running, barely able to get a full sentence. Out before she stepped back behind the curtain, the footage exploded online within minutes. Rachel Zegler Live was trending before the event even ended. What was meant to be a comeback became the most humiliating moment of her career. But what followed may have been even worse. As the dust settled, people started asking, was it all just a calculated act? In the immediate aftermath of the incident, something strange happened. Just hours after the footage hit the internet, it began disappearing. Original clips were taken down for copyright violations. Fan accounts reported being shadow banned after posting the video. Some users claimed their critical comments were mysteriously vanishing from official event pages. Within 24 hours, her team released a vague statement thanking fans for their continued support and framing the moment as a human one. But by then, the damage was already done. What could have been an emotional moment, celebrated as a powerful example of artistic vulnerability, wasn't received the way her team had hoped. The public wasn't buying it. The timing felt too neat, too clean, and far too convenient. Industry observers began to speculate. Was the entire event orchestrated as a PR reset, a calculated move to evoke sympathy? Or was this truly a breaking point that spiraled out of control before anyone could stop it? According to one alleged insider, a crisis management firm had been quietly hired just weeks prior, one with a reputation for emotional reframing and celebrity image repair. The plan, they claimed, was simple. Humanize Zegler, show her cracking under pressure, make her relatable again, but it backfired. Viewers saw through the polish. Instead of empathy, the moment stirred more resentment. "She's crying because people finally said what we were all thinking," one viral comment read. Another simply said, "Too little, too late." Attempts to reframe the narrative only deepened the divide. Rather than softening her image, The spin campaign came across as manipulative and, in some circles, even more offensive than the original incident. And just when her team thought things couldn't get worse, the internet made sure they did. It didn't just react, it erupted. As the clip of Zegler's breakdown circulated across X, TikTok, and YouTube, it sparked a cultural war that split the public in half. On one side were those who felt vindicated, claiming the actress had been arrogant, disrespectful, and completely out of touch. Out of touch with the fan base that once supported her, these weren't just casual critics anymore. They were former fans, Disney loyalists, and even entertainment commentators who had grown tired of what they perceived as entitlement. She mocked us for months. One tweet with over 100,000 likes read, "Now she finally heard how people feel." Memes followed. Clips of the booing were edited into compilations of Zegler's past interviews, creating a digital timeline of her downfall, almost like a tragic character arc from a TV show. But not everyone was cheering. Another wave of responses pushed back. Hard. They argued that no one, no matter how disliked, deserves to be publicly humiliated. Influencers, actors, and media personalities started weighing in. Some compared the backlash to cyberbullying. Others warned of a disturbing trend in modern fandom, where the lines between criticism and cruelty are completely blurred. When did it become normal to show up just to tear someone down? One viral post asked. Mental health advocates joined the conversation. Terms like mob mentality and emotional trauma became part of the discourse. Suddenly, Zegler wasn't just a controversial celebrity, she was a symbol of deeper cultural tension. A test case for how far the public is willing to go when they turn on someone. And in the eye of that storm, one question hung in the air. Was this her lowest point, or just the beginning of something worse? Rachel Zegler now stands at a crossroads, and no PR firm in the world can walk it for her. After the public breakdown, the booing, and the failed spin attempts, the question that lingers isn't whether her career is in trouble, it's whether it can be salvaged at all. Hollywood is a strange beast. It builds idols fast, but it burns them even faster. And Zegler's trajectory, from celebrated newcomer to cultural flashpoint, has become a case study in just how quickly it can all collapse. But as she sits in the wreckage of what was supposed to be her reign, the real question isn't about her past missteps. It's about what she does next. Does she go quiet? Disappear for a year, maybe more? Let the storm pass and re-emerge with a carefully timed comeback moment? Or does she double down again, face the backlash head-on, and risk lighting the fuse all over again? Head-on, release another statement, do a podcast, maybe even cry on camera, and hope that vulnerability earns her another shot? It's a brutal gamble either way, because right now, Zegler doesn't just have a PR problem, she has a public trust problem. And rebuilding that kind of connection, once it's shattered, is almost impossible. The backlash wasn't born out of one bad performance or a single quote taken out of context. It came from a slow, painful realization for fans. The person they were cheering for didn't seem to like them back. The very audience that helped make her famous appeared, in her eyes, outdated, uninformed, or unworthy of respect. That disconnect is what cut the deepest. When audiences feel talked down to, dismissed, or mocked by the people they support, it creates a rift that no amount of acting talent can bridge. And Zegler isn't navigating this in a vacuum. She's part of a much bigger narrative, a growing resentment toward what many see as performative activism in Hollywood, the kind where studios chase headlines over heart, where casting becomes a battleground, and classic stories are rewritten not to inspire, but to provoke. Whether fairly or not, Zegler has become a lightning rod for those frustrations. Her name is now shorthand for the backlash against Disney's live-action overhaul machine, and when fans booed her, they weren't just booing a single actress, they were booing an entire industry's choices. So what does a comeback even look like in this climate? First, silence might be her only friend. Right now, the internet forgets fast, but only if you stop feeding it. Every new comment, every tweet, every staged photo op risks reopening wounds that haven't even begun to close. A hiatus could allow the chaos to settle. Let the next controversy take over. Let the noise move on. But the return? That's where things get complicated. Because when Zegler does come back, and she will, she'll need more than a script. She'll need a strategy that doesn't just reintroduce her to the public, but redefines her completely. That means humility. Real humility. Not the prepackaged kind with polished apologies and vague statements about learning and growth. If Rachel Zegler ever addresses the backlash head-on, it has to be raw, honest, and vulnerable in a way that doesn't feel like damage control. That might mean doing an unscripted podcast where she opens up about the pressure, the backlash, and the real toll it took on her, not as a performance, but as a person. The public can forgive a lot, but only if they feel they're finally seeing the truth, not another act. Then there's the question of roles. For Zegler, the next role she chooses could make or break everything. She can't keep playing the empowered, rebel archetype in studio reboots. It will only remind people of the version of her they rejected. If she wants to win people back, she'll need to do something that surprises them. Maybe something indie, small, intimate, a character that shows depth, contradiction, even fragility. Something where she isn't the loudest person in the room, but the most quietly human. And if she nails it, if the performance feels real, unfiltered, even a little uncomfortable, that's when the public might start to soften. Of course, all of this hinges on whether studios are even willing to take that risk. Right now, Zegler's name carries baggage, financial baggage, reputation baggage. Theaters are nervous, investors are watching, and while Hollywood loves a redemption story, it only invests in the ones it thinks will sell. That's why some industry analysts believe she may be forced to pivot away from leading roles and into smaller, supporting performances, just to rebuild credibility. Others think she could take the streaming route, release a surprise project on Netflix or Amazon that bypasses the box office and delivers directly to the audience, free from press tours and expectations. There's also the influencer path, something many disgraced celebrities have leaned into. But for Zegler, who built her brand as an actor first, going full lifestyle YouTuber or TikTok creator could dilute what little brand power she has left. The safer move might be to stay quiet, work in the background, and slowly build a new version of herself, one that doesn't rely on corporate Disney sparkle or headline-grabbing interviews. And yet, for all the speculation, one thing is undeniable. The next move will define not just her career, but how she's remembered. Rachel Zegler's story is far from over. Whether you love her or hate her, people are still watching, still talking, and still waiting to see what she does next. That kind of attention, no matter how negative, still holds power. And in Hollywood, power means possibility. She's been cast out, mocked, and even booed on stage. But if she learns from it, if she owns the pain instead of trying to hide it, there's a slim, brutal chance she could turn the narrative around. Not by force, not through PR, but by showing the one thing the public hasn't seen from her yet: realness, flaws, and humanity. In a world full of carefully managed celebrities, sometimes the most radical move is to simply be honest. But if Rachel Zegler can't, or won't, make that shift, then she's not heading for a comeback. She's facing erasure. Hollywood doesn't have patience for long-term controversy. The spotlight doesn't dim, it moves. And right now, it's already starting to turn away.